Okay, guys, here is part two of every Marvel movie ranked from the very worst to the very best. Right now, I am here with part two. And for those who did not watch part one, I did the bottom three movies, which include Iron Man 3, Thor the Dark World, and Ant-Man. Well, now I'm going to do Iron Man 2. Yeah, Iron Man 2 is the fourth bottom one. Now we're really getting into the movies that are just kind of okay. The bottom three were the ones I didn't like. This one is just kind of this is just one that I felt was just okay. Not great, not terrible, just kind of okay. Now, here's the thing about Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2 is one of those movies that started out really great. At the very beginning, it was really great. Toward the end, it just was a mess. Um, I feel if the second half of the movie was just as good as the first part of the movie, then this film could have been just as good, if not better, than its predecessor. But sadly, it just fell apart at the very end. Um, thing about Iron Man 2 is the villain, Ivan Vanko, Whiplash. I thought he sucked in everything, but I feel in the first half he was a threatening bad guy. But after they got to the "I want my bird" part, that's just where he just became a joke and nobody liked him or anything. So yeah, that wasn't good at all. And I feel Black Widow was shoehorned in. War Machine, well, they had Rhodey obviously, but I feel him becoming War Machine was just shoehorned in for fan service. Um, and pretty much everything, all the problems. I won't go on with the problems all that long. For all I won't look at the problems all that much because most of the problems have already been addressed by people before. So I'm just going to be talking about some not so bad things. Um, War Machine was okay. Well, actually, well, no, War Machine wasn't okay. That was one of the things. I think what I really liked, I've talked about obviously already what I really liked. I thought Whiplash at the beginning was fine. One thing I really liked was Justin Hammer. I thought Justin Hammer was a really good villain. He didn't have much to do, sadly, but he was still probably my second favorite villain of the MCU. I felt he could match Tony. He was like an evil counterpart to Tony, and I really liked that. So yeah, I wish there was more. I wish this movie could have been better. I don't think it's the worst Marvel movie though. So that's where I rank Iron Man 2. So next is one of the more recent films. Oh, screen. Gotta get back to screen share. Crap. Hold on, guys. Crap. Hold on. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to get it. Here we go. Okay, I got 3 viewers, guys. All right, so the next one here is Avengers the Age of Ultron. Avengers Age of Ultron, again, this is another movie that's just kind of okay. Um Avengers Age of Ultron, when it's good, it's really, really good. Um, when it's not so good, it's really, really bad. Um, I understand what they were going with when it comes to the Thor, not the Thor, the Hulk and Black Widow relationship. But the thing is, it added absolutely nothing to their characters. And at the very end of the movie, it achieved nothing because Hulk went on, Hulk went his separate ways. Hulk went, he became a runaway superhero, as always. And Black Widow went back to being a super secret super spy. Um, so really, it just didn't change anything. They didn't develop. They didn't change his characters. Um, it really was just an unnecessary relationship that Joss Whedon just put to be new. Um, the scenes were also filler scenes, and the dialogue between the two is somewhat cringeworthy, to be quite honest with you. Um, Ultron was I got what they were going with Ultron because Justin Hammer and Loki were both they were the only two good villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Everybody else was just forgettable. Except for Bucky, but I mean, there are people who will argue that the Winter Soldier isn't even a villain, just a victim. Um, Now I personally argue that he's a villain, but I mean, that's just me. Um, let's take a look. I'm gonna take a look at the chat for a second. Yeah, Sam Rockwell. Yeah, I agree. Rockwell was great as Justin Hammer. It said that it said in Civil War that Age of Ultron plays a big part. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I've been trying to avoid spoilers of Civil War. But yeah, I thought Ultron was really a disappointing villain. He was just kind of how do I explain this? I had the same problems with Ultron that I did with Lex Luthor in Batman v Superman, which is if that were a different villain, it might have worked. But for that specific villain, it just the personality didn't work. I mean, Ultron is supposed to be he's supposed to be like a robotic Hitler in the comics. I mean, he goes around preaching this great message of peace and prosperity, but then he ends up going all genocidal. And in Avengers Age of Ultron, he's just a funny. It's like they made him funny just for the sake of, making him like, what's his name? Loki. Um, but you did get to see the Avengers develop as a team, and I thought that was well done about the film. You got to see how they worked together. You didn't really get to see much of that in the first Avengers film because they were still struggling to work together. But now that they knew each other, and had developed relationships with each other, this was really where the fun got. You got to play around with the fun. Um, and I thought it was really it wasn't a great film, and I thought Nick Fury just kind of came in out of he came in out of nowhere. Um, and I also feel they shoehorned way too much in. Um, and Quicksilver was a little bit annoying and not as good. I know I'm gonna get people, disliking this video for this and probably typing mean comments. But I like the X-Men Days of Future Past Quicksilver, maybe kind of a lot better than the Avengers Age of Ultron Quicksilver. So I was actually kind of glad when they killed off Quicksilver in Age of Ultron because I found him to be unlikable and bratty. Um, but I thought overall, Avengers: Age of Ultron is one of those 7 out of 10 type of movies. It was one of those movies that wasn't great. The thing about Age of Ultron is it gave me what I expected. Except for, and this was what pissed a lot of people off, it wasn't dark enough. Um, but even though it wasn't dark enough, it was still a decent film. Um, and I mean, the trailer just made it look like it was gonna be dark, and that's the thing. But here's the thing: for what it was, it met my expectations. Didn't exceed them, but it also didn't disappoint. So, Age of Ultron isn't a terrible movie. It's just not a great movie. The next one on our list is Captain America: The First Avenger. Now, the Captain America: The First Avenger is going to be another. It's going to be another thing. We're going to get people to um, probably get people to um, to write mean comments, or I don't know. I don't care about mean comments. I think they're fine. Um, but this is probably going to be one of those things that um, let's see. I'm gonna check to make sure I'm still. It's probably going to be one of those. Oh, okay. Yep. Slides are working as planned. Yeah, it's one of those movies. It's very much like Iron Man 3. I mean, not Iron Man 3. Iron Man 2. Oh, it's a lot better than Iron Man 3. It's much like Iron Man 2 in a sense that it starts out really good, but at the very end it just isn't that good. The thing about Captain America: The First Avenger is the first part was relatable. The first part was about the little guy going. It's like Rocky, it's the little guy eventually becoming the America's greatest symbol. And but at the very end, towards the end, it just felt like it was a countdown clock to the Avengers. Similar to Iron Man 2, it just felt like at the very end, it's just like, ooh, the cosmic cube or the Tesseract. It's how about that? It's in the Avengers, so oh, isn't this fun? Woo! Oh, and this will happen, and we'll foreshadow this, and we'll foreshadow that. Oh, and here's Nick Fury. Oh, it's in the Avengers. Oh, yeah. And again, I wish Hollywood, if they're gonna make all these superhero movies, I wish they would making hero movies foreshadow. The Russian accents weren't very good. Yeah, I wish if they're gonna make all these superhero movies, which is great, I love them all, but if they're going to do it, I wish they would stop making superhero movies where they just, especially if they're gonna do crossover movies, stop doing movies before the crossover films that just, foreshadow the next movie. Do you know what I mean? Um, I really wish they would just, go their own route. And just try and make a good movie before you make a movie that just foreshadows everything else. That's why people complain about Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, or um, or what was it, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. People complain that tried way too hard to set up the Sinister Six, and people complain Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice tried way too hard to foreshadow the Justice League. So yeah, that's my beef with Captain America: The First Avenger. And I will say, Peggy Carter, great character. Red Skull was okay. Steve Rogers, he was really, really well done as a character. I really liked how they made him scrawny, and they kind of eventually he worked his way up to being a hero. But the next one, now we're going to get into the ones that I actually really, really, really liked. Starting with Thor. We're getting through this list much quicker than I got through Ant-Man, Iron Man 3, and Thor: The Dark World. Yes, the first Thor movie. The first Thor movie was extremely underrated. Now, granted, I can accept some of the flaws. Um, I feel Jane Foster was annoying. I know, but there was some good to Thor. You know, a lot of people complain that there wasn't enough time spent on Asgard, but I'm glad there wasn't that much time spent in Asgard because it could have turned into Clash of the Titans or something like that, or the New Gods of Egypt movie that came out. It could have turned out like something like that, but I think it worked because it was more so about it had humor. It basically it was about Thor working his way up to actually being a hero. Um, you know, at first he's arrogant. You know, he's full of himself. He thinks he knows everything as a hero. He won't accept mistakes, and then he goes on Earth and he learns what it means to be humbled. And I thought that was really, really great. You know, it shows that you have to earn being a hero. You know, well, a hero, well, you have to, yeah, being a beloved hero, you know, that's earned. And that was really what Thor was about. And it's about working your way up to being a superhero. First, you've got to be a hero before you're a superhero. I think that was what the message of Thor was. Loki was great. Odin was great. This movie was amazing. Well, it wasn't amazing, but it was really, really good. There were flaws here and there, but I thought overall, I would probably say this is on par with Spider-Man 2, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. I'm not kidding. I think it's that good. So that's my opinion on Thor. Now we're gonna get into the ones that I really, really liked. This next one, like with Thor, is in my opinion really underrated. The Incredible Hulk. God, nothing shouts underrated like The Incredible Hulk from 2008. The Incredible Hulk was a great film, in my opinion. It was a movie about love. It was like a heist movie meets a love drama. The thing about what I think has been lacking in the Marvel, as much as we love the Marvel Cinematic Universe, one thing that I think has been lacking in recent films is drama. The Incredible Hulk had drama. This was everything I could have wanted in a Hulk movie and more. But for some reason, unfortunately, because there wasn't enough promoting that went on. So because of that, or enough marketing going on, and the trailer wasn't released until a little while before the movie actually came out. So because of that, the Incredible Hulk 8 years later has become one of the most, and also it came out only 1 month after Iron Man. So I think Iron Man 1 kind of stomped on that movie. Um, but for me, it will always be one of my favorite Marvel movies. Edward Norton, in my opinion, was in look. Mark Ruffalo is a great Hulk. Don't get me wrong; he's a great Bruce Banner and a great Hulk. But in my opinion, Edward Norton was better. That's just my opinion. You can feel free to disagree, and I understand why they kicked Ed Norton off because I know he should have promoted the movie and he should have gone along with the with Marvel's what Marvel wanted from him, and they didn't, and he didn't. But I still think, from a performance standpoint, Ed Norton is the best Hulk and will always be the best Hulk. Um, all around, I just thought this was a great movie. There was this. It had espionage. It had mystery. It had, drama. It had romance. It was everything that the Hulk origin is supposed to be, rather than that stupid, crappy attempt Ang Lee tried with us in 2003. So yeah, I thought The Incredible Hulk was a great movie. Um, and I really wish people. I think Thor, Incredible Hulk are both, like the Scott Pilgrim versus they're both underrated. They're both underlooked. They both deserve more credit, and I wish more people would, you know, give them credit. But unfortunately, the Incredible Hulk, people just ice right over this film. When you're talking about Marvel movies, you'll mention all these. You'll mention Iron Man 2 for better or for worse, or Avengers for better or for worse, or the Winter Soldier, or whatever. But nobody ever talks about the Incredible Hulk, and that's really a shame. And I really wish more people would, because I think it's a great film. The message was amazing, and I think the Hulk was always the first superhero I loved. And as somebody who can say that, I mean, I nearly cried when I first watched the scene with Abomination. So I think this is a really underrated film. I really suggest you guys go watch this film again and give it a second chance, because I thought it was really, really, really well done. But let's get on to the next one. Yes, coming in next is the Avengers. Now, a lot of people are wondering, why am I not making this number one? Because for many people, Avengers is, the definitive number one. It's like no Marvel movie will ever beat out the Avengers. And I can understand that. But like with its successor, Age of Ultron, although I do feel this was far superior to Avengers Age of Ultron. But like with Avengers Age of Ultron, Avengers could have been a disappointment, but it completely met my expectations. Completely. And that's part of the reason why it's so high. But it's also part of the reason why it's not as high as you may have expected. Because it met my there are movies that will just blow me away. Guardians of the Galaxy, I expected a lot out of Guardians of the Galaxy. It completely exceeded my expectations. Deadpool, I expected a lot out of Deadpool. Deadpool completely exceeded my expectations. Deadpool skyrocketed to be my favorite Marvel movie of all time. It exceeded my expectations, and I feel the Avengers had a chance to exceed my expectations, and it didn't. But it completely met them. It didn't underwhelm me in any way. It just didn't overwhelm me in any way either. And there were a few problems. Clint Barton, Hawkeye, they redeemed him in the second one. I think he was really well done in Age of Ultron, but he wasn't good in this movie. He was really a joke of a character in this film, and I really hate to say that, but I didn't like Hawkeye. I mean, you barely notice he's there, and I think that's probably because most of the other Avengers had their own movies, um, and therefore we got to know them better. Um, Iron Man got his own movie before this. Hulk got his own movie before this. Thor got his own movie before this. Captain America got his own movie before this. Black Widow didn't have her own movie before this, but she still played an extremely significant role in Iron Man 2. So we had already gotten to know her. And like you can almost consider Iron Man 2 to be a Black Widow movie. Um and Nick Fury, I guess you could consider him an Avenger, can't you? He had appeared in several different Marvel movies before this. And I know Clint Barton had a cameo in Thor, but it was just a cameo. I mean, you can't look at one Stan Lee cameo and get to say, "Oh, that character Stan Lee played. I really got to know him. I really got invested in that character because it's just a cameo." Same with Hawkeye. So when they finally put him in Avengers, there really just wasn't a lot for him to do. Um, but I thought the Avengers, the way we were all expecting the Avengers to just be, to just have them all automatically come together, say we're the best, we're best buds, we're and everything like that. But they didn't. They really they they really got the Avengers. They fought each other, and it took them a while, to put their differences aside. And they only put their differences aside because they felt bad for a guy who was never that important until this film came out, and I thought that was fascinating and that was amazing. And what else? What was his name? I'm trying to think of his name. Never mind, I can't remember that. But Shield, for example, and that's another thing. Shield was used perfectly in this movie. The way they helped to set up the Avengers, that was perfect. And obviously Loki was perfect in this movie. Um, so I thought that Avengers was a great film. Definitely one I'd recommend watching again. It was definitely the movie I wanted. Um, I couldn't have asked for anything more, but the thing is, I wish Marvel had given me more that I hadn't asked for. So yeah, I thought it was a great movie. It just was. It just Marvel could have. I wish that there was more. I just thought there was more they could have done to try and quote unquote blow me away. But yeah, overall, great, really great movie. Now, if you are really surprised to see this so high on the list, then you probably need to go. You probably haven't seen the movie. If you're surprised to see the Winter Soldier so high on the list, then you probably haven't seen all of Winter Soldier, because obviously Winter Soldier, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, is often considered one of the best Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, and it's not hard to see why. It's essentially like the All the President's Men of superhero films, and I'm not just saying that because Robert Redford happens to be in the movie. Captain America: The Winter Soldier is one of those films has espionage. It was a game changer for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The character development was well done. This was really where Black Widow became more of a. This is where she cemented herself as a fan favorite character. Um, you know, a lot of people didn't like her in Iron Man 2. Most people didn't like her in Iron Man 2. And the Avengers, it was kind of like a mix. People had mixed feelings about her in the Avengers. And then, what's it called? Then this came out, and everybody was like, you know what? Black Widow's my favorite character. Black Widow's awesome. The only problem people have now with the Black Widow is the fact that she always crushes on somebody else in a different movie. Like in Iron Man 2, she crushed on Tony. Then in Avengers, she crushed on uh, Clint Bar. She crushed on Hawkeye, and then in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, she crushed on Captain America, and then Avengers: Age of Ultron, she crushed on Hulk. So she crushed on Iron Man. What's his name? Hawkeye, Captain America, and now Hulk. So who's she gonna crush on next? Spider-Man? Okay, that'd be a little weird since he's a teenager now. But yeah, I thought Captain America: The Winter Soldier. It was definitely a phenomenal film. Bucky, this is what made Bucky a fan favorite character. This is what cemented himself as one of the most beloved, characters of all time. This is really where this really developed this movie alone developed an entire fan base for Sebastian Stan, the actor that plays Bucky. Nick Fury, probably one of the best uses of Nick Fury in a Marvel movie to date, if not the best. But the only reason why it's not number one is because there were a few plot holes um, that people overlooked. Like the fact that Captain America or Steve goes into a museum and he goes into an exhibit that's about him, yet the only person who recognizes it's him is because is a 10-year-old. That's the only guy who recognizes it's him. And he's only able to disguise himself by wearing a hat and shades. Yeah, he's only able to do that with the Clark Kent disguise. Also, how come both Captain America movies end with him trying to crash a plane into the water, thinking he's sacrificing himself for everybody? Little repetitive, if you ask me. Hmm. Makes you wonder how the next one is gonna turn out, huh? Yeah, that's what I thought. Let me see. I'm gonna be looking at I'm looking at the comment section right now. The Amazing Spider Gamer says, "Meh, I liked Age of Ultron better." For what, Avengers? I can see why people liked Age of Ultron better. I just didn't love Age of Ultron. It's really one of those love it or hate it movies, and I can see both sides of the argument. That actually looks awesome, and for some reason, makes me want to see Civil War a bit more. Yeah, Winter Soldier was great. Yeah, Winter Soldier was a great film. It's just there were a few plot holes, which is why it's not number one. And it ended the exact same way Captain America 1 did. But I can still ignore that. I still don't make a big deal. I think the reason most people won't make a big deal out of that and why I won't make a big deal out of that, even though I've been called one of the biggest critics of Marvel that by people, is the fact that it was one of the most well written Marvel movies to date, and one of the most well written superhero movies after maybe The Dark Knight. I thought The Dark Knight, in my opinion, is the greatest superhero movie of all time. Came out 8 years ago, and my opinions have shifted as more superhero movies have come out about which superhero movie is the best superhero movie or which ranks amongst the best superhero movie list. But I still think that the number one greatest superhero movie is The Dark Knight. But and I thought that ever since it's come out in 2008 that it is the definitive superhero movie. But and it's mainly because of how well written it is. But I think the second most well written Marvel movie is this. And the humor, there's a bit of humor which worked, but overall, it held a very consistent tone. And this could have been a movie that just ended up being a horrible or just a great idea ruined by horrible execution. But the Russo brothers obviously had a great idea and they executed it in the perfect way. And the result was a perfect movie. And Captain America the Winter Soldier, it's no wonder why so many people love that film. Let's get to the next one, though, which is Iron Man. Yes, my second favorite Marvel movie is Iron Man. After 8 years, I still believe Iron Man is one of the best Marvel movies of all time, and one of the most mainly because it's one of the most compelling Marvel movies of all time. Iron Man was even to this day, it's easy to look when you got now that you have movie, it was obviously extremely well received at the time, but now with movies like the Avengers or the Winter Soldier, it's easy to say that Iron Man is just kind of meh in comparison to those. But when you really think about it, it's one of the most compelling movies of all time, or one of the most compelling superhero movies of all time. Um, you know, it was what I really liked about it was the fact that it was really a movie about you know facing your inner demons. It wasn't just good versus bad. It was about fighting you know your inner demons. It was about um It was about PTSD. It was sort of about PTSD. It kind of had it went for tried going for the same thing that Iron Man 3 did, but it actually, did it right. And it understood Iron Man as a character. Iron Man 3 really turned me off about Iron Man 3. Well, one of the things that really turned me off was that it completely took away what people loved about Iron Man. Part of the reason I always thought Iron Man was so popular was because, Iron Man, Tony Stark, he actually wanted to be a superhero and he chose to be a superhero. Spider-Man, you'll see people like Spider-Man who just complain all the time about being superheroes. Tony loved being a superhero. And, it was relatable to people that read the comic because we all want to be superheroes. We all wish we could be superheroes. And Tony Stark was the guy who kind of embodied that dream. And then in comes Iron Man 3 to try and ruin that and say, oh, yeah, being a superhero, it's horrible. Who wants to be a superhero? Who wants to be beloved by the public? Who wants to be bestowed with great power? Who wants to be a symbol of hope? It's just terrible to be a superhero. Being a superhero is terrible. Dark and grittiness in this life but Iron Man, in Iron Man 1, Tony really had a reason to be a superhero, and you could see why he wanted to be a superhero and why he loved being a superhero. And overall, it was just a great movie. It had great characters, amazing action, an amazing narrative. That's another thing about the movie that I loved. The narrative was just perfect. Um, it had a lot stuffed into it, but it didn't stuff too much into it. It had just enough. Unfortunately, Iron Man 2 tried the same formula and it didn't work because there was a little bit too much stuffed into that movie. But with Iron Man 1, it was done perfectly. And when Nick Fury came in and said, "Oh, I want to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative," that was just sheer perfectness. Iron Man 1 was a phenomenal movie and was really I I thought it was great. I think it's still to this day one of the best superhero movies I've ever watched, and it really deserves, more credit. But there's still one more movie that I thought was better than Iron Man, and that movie is Guardians of the Galaxy. Yes. Guardians of the Galaxy is one of the most flawless superhero movies of all time. And up until recently, when Deadpool came out, was, in my opinion, the best Marvel movie in general. However, it is still, in my opinion, the best Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. Guardians of the Galaxy was one of those movies where the odds were completely against it. It should have been one of those movies. Everybody thought it was gonna suck because nobody knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy was. You have a talking raccoon and a talking tree. How would the general audience take it? But it took it, completely well by taking these alien characters and making them feel human. Not only was the tone colorful and fun, but it still had drama to it. It still had character development. It still had a reason. There was some emotional attachment between all these characters. You could see why each character. You could see their motivations. You could see their reasons for fighting for what they fought for. Guardians of the Galaxy was a perfect movie, and I absolutely loved it. Guardians of the Galaxy is one of the few superhero movies which I can give a 10 out of 10. And I just thought it was stupendous. It had amazing characters, amazing action, and amazing direction. And overall, it was just an amazing film. So let me know. I'm going to check the chat right now before I leave to see if anybody's added anything. Tony Stark didn't go. Yeah. Oh, fighting your inner demon sounds uh something similar to Spider-Man 3, don't you think? Although Iron Man 1 has a better reputation than Spider-Man 3. Look, I've said this before, ideas are one thing, but you've got to have great um execution for great ideas. Um and I think Spider-Man 3 had a great idea, but it didn't execute those ideas in the best way. It took a great storyline that was basically about that and ruined it. Um, Tony Stark didn't go to jazz clubs or point and dance in the street. Yeah, again, Iron Man 3 was a great idea with great execution. Spider Man 3 was not. Or not, yeah, Iron Man 1 was. I know, I thought it was hilarious. And Iron Man only had one villain. Yep, one villain is more than enough for one superhero movie. I agree. So this is my opinion. I thought Guardians of the Galaxy, my opinion, was the best Marvel movie to date. Now let me know. This is the chat section. Why don't I go to screen share and come on. Whoa. Okay, I'm watching myself. Okay, so here's the chat section. Oh, and yeah, got three people watching at the moment. So let me know in the chat section, and after this live stream ends, let me know what you thought of this list. Is there any you disagree with, or are there any you agreed with? Um, did you agree with all of them? Did you agree with none of them? Did you agree with some of them, or disagree with some of them, and agree with some other ones? Let me know in the comment section below, or in the chat section right now. And yeah, oh, me and Multiversity Studios are working on something big. Well, that's good to hear. I look forward to seeing what it is in the future. Now I'm going to end this live stream. I've been on, I don't know how long I've been on. But yeah, guys, I'm out. Bye.